TOS fans, Robin here again on everybody's favourite Khorne 8, looking up at you. I'm going to run through a quick run through of my Khorne deck that I'm going to be fighting Pete with at some point in the future. This is a little bit of an experimental deck. I don't play Khorne very often, I don't really know what I'm doing, so anyway, this is supposed to be a bit more fun than skill, but we'll see how we go. So here we go. So this one, hold objective 1, not very exciting. Hold objective 2, not very exciting. Hold objective 3, not very exciting. Hold objective 4, not very exciting. Hold objective 5, not very exciting. You know how it goes. Supremacy, I think a must-have at a Khorne deck, especially a fast-moving Khorne deck. Supremacy in there, 3 objectives potentially, 3 glory points, sorry, potentially. It begins. A good card for Khorne. Score this in an end phase. Sorry, if you don't know what Supremacy is, basically it means if you've got 3 objectives, then you can hold 3 objectives and once you get 3 glory, and that's in any end phase. I think that's worth having. It begins. Score this in an end phase if at least 1 fighter from each warband is out of action. Likely to happen in any game, and so especially Khorne, who's a bit weak, you're probably going to lose 1 man at least, so I would say that's a good card to have for Khorne. Plant a standard. This is a very objective focused deck. Score this in an end phase if your leader is holding objective in enemy territory. That is what I'll be trying to do. It is your leader though, so we do have to bear that in mind when playing. Determined defender. Score this in an end phase if the same friendly fighter has held the same objective at the end of 2 consecutive action phases. Sometimes this happens by accident. I'm not sure I would necessarily do it by design, but sometimes it happens by accident and it'd be nice to have a glory for it. So there we are. Play 5 members of your warband at the start. There's plenty of things for your opponent to be concentrating on. You might just sneak a sneaky determined defender. Glory. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows. Score this in an end phase. You have 5 or more fighters out of action. If 5 or more fighters are out of action. Again, with Khorne, I think that's quite likely, especially if he's playing the bigger warbands. I think that's worth a try because it's worth 2. And it's an end phase, not the 3rd end phase. And I've gone for Conquest, which is perhaps a mistake. Score this in the 3rd end phase if all your surviving fighters are in your opponent's territory. This kind of is a backup card if my plans have gone south, or if I'm very lucky and all the objectives that I want are in the end zone. Then it's worth having in there. It's 2 glory points, and it can be done with the fast-moving Khornes, I think. Coward, another kind of backup card. Score this immediately if an enemy fighter begins a move action adjacent to one of your fighters and ends it adjacent to none of your fighters. This does happen sometimes. Worth having in there. Pick up a glory. So there are my objectives. As you can see, very objective focused. A very objective focused deck, and you'll see it gets even more objective focused in a moment. So we will look at that in a second. Moving on to ploys. Healing potion. I've said in my previous deck run through that I really like healing potion. I think it's vital in all decks. So here it is. Top in. Fortify. Friendly fighters holding objectives have +1 defense for the next activation. Definitely worth it. If you're going for an objective-based deck, you can play it if you've got 3 or 4 on there, especially if you're going for Supremacy, +1 defense, very useful. Sidestep, I'm a fan of sidestep. Choose a friendly fighter and push them 1 hex, always good for getting that manoeuvrability, moving on to those objectives if you can. If you push somebody off it, you can sidestep up into it, very handy. Desecrate, remove 1 objective that you hold from the battlefield. If I'm going to be holding some objectives, I might want to stop my opponent from holding some objectives. Desecrate, well worth having. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Play this after a friendly fighter's attack that takes an enemy fighter out of action, drops 2 power cards. It's a kind of like a bonus really to defeating somebody. You get a couple of extra cards. It's always good to cycle through your cards, so I've put that one in. Blood Offering. Choose a friendly fighter. They suffer 1 damage. Roll 2 extra dice for their first attack action of the next activation. Again, worth it on players on teams like Sayek and what have you, do lots of damage. I've stuck that in there just to give me a bit of bite. I'm not just going to be running around going for those objectives. Fueled by Slaughter. Play this after an attack or ploy that takes a fighter out of action. A friendly fighter can make an attack action. Very handy to immediately snap back or just keep on the pressure. It's a good card, that one. Shifting Shards. Move an unheld objective 1 hex. Could be handy if I'm trying to get a hold of those objectives. So that's very useful. Confusion. Bit of switching round, always good to sow some confusion. Sprint, again, handy. If I want to get that objective that's on its own, run for it, and that's pretty useful. So here's my upgrade cards. Starting with great speed. I'm not sure this is a great card to have in. I'm a believer in speed on the game, but actually the Khornes move pretty fast. So I may regret putting that in, but there we are. Great speed's gone in. Blood Slick. That's a player selected card on restricted to Garrek, but it does give him +1 defence, which is pretty useful. So we're going to do that, especially if we're going to be defending those objectives. Whirlwind of Death. Carsus, always good to get +1 damage on Carsus on his 1 or his 2 range attack. I think that's worth having in there, even though it's just on one player. Berserk Charge. Sayek gives people, one of people worrying about Sayek. So I've put that in so that people do worry about him because he's swords and hammers to hit, which is really useful. Wicked Blade for Arnulf. Wasn't sure about this one either, but I'd seem to remember Pete doing some pretty nasty damage with Arnulf with this card. And actually, if it makes Arnulf a bit more threatening after he's been left alone and ignored, then I think that's a good card to have in there. It just gives you a different alternative. So I'll put him in there. We'll see how it goes. And another one for Garrek. So I have gone quite heavy on the restricted cards, which I may regret in this game. When this fighter could be driven back during an attack action, you can instead push 1 hex. So you can push Garrek 1 hex, which is quite handy again if I'm going to be capturing those objectives or just moving out of the way. So I'll put that in there. Shard Caller at the beginning of each action phase. Now that's an important action phase, so you can only do this if you're holding an objective at the end of the first or second action phase, but so you do it at the beginning of the next one. You can't do it at the end of the game, but you could switch an objective held by this fighter with any other objective. Could be very useful, could be very powerful and very helpful to scoring objectives, particularly when combined with the Dazzling Key. So this could be handy if I could switch in objective 4 for free using my Shard Caller, or if I don't, if I've already got objective 4, then I could always use the Shadow Key and go for objective 2. I'm not sure about these cards. This is where the experiment comes in. They look quite nice, but I'm not sure how easy they are to score. We will find out. I've never used them. It'll be interesting to see. And then finally, I have my Cursed Artifact, which is +1 defence, which I think is handy for Khorne, although it is -1 wound, which is a bit of a bind. But we thought we'd try that. So that's my experimental speedy, running around, capturing objectives, holding objectives, hopefully, deck for Khorne. I'm not quite sure how it will go. I'm very interested to play against the support guard with that deck because it'll be mayhem, I think, with that many figures on the board. So we'll play with that soon, hopefully. So I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope it was useful. You'll see how it goes in one of our forthcoming battle reports. Until then, happy gaming. Please, if you do enjoy this, found it useful, then please do like us or leave some comments below, and we will continue. I shall hopefully continue with these decks and refine them and improve them, and maybe record another video at some point in the future. So I hope you found that useful, and until next time, goodbye.